in with and knowing where to break in. Another thing, another example, Hacking. You might have heard about this. That's an Italian company. I am not related to this company, even though I'm Italian. This is an Italian company that was actually providing services to governments for surveillance. And a hacker decided that he didn't like them, and that this hacker decided that what they were doing was unethical. So he decided to try to break in. He decided to break in and to publish the documents on the internet. Okay, these are highly skilled security experts. It was a small team, it was a small company. They had the best security in place, basically, more or less. Now, the attacker managed to hack the system. And actually, if you read he published in Fastspin the steps of the attacks, and if you read that, that's an eye-opener, because you see at every stage of the attacks he had a whole bunch of possibilities. This was never luck. He always had different choices, and he took intelligent choices to break in as quickly as possible. He says it costed him 80 hours. I think it costed him more. But the interesting thing for this audience is that he could have got in. The first step is the most difficult one, and he could have got in via different things, and he chose to break in the router. He said, well, he had three options, and the one that was possibly the easiest one was to break in the router that we're using for internet. So he just did some work of reverse engineering. He found a vulnerability, and he got in. And then he started listening, once he got in, then he started listening to what was happening on the network, etc., 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 etc. But the first step was very, very consciously getting into an embedded system. So embedded systems that are everywhere, that are the essence, the building blocks of Internet of Things, they have vulnerabilities, and these vulnerabilities, since they are connected to the Internet, can be exploited as a first step to get in. So, okay, having said this, how do we deal with this? I am a security professor, and what I like to do is intrusion detection. That's my passion. That's what I do for life, in research and in real life. And after years of doing intrusion detection, I can tell you there are two ways of doing intrusion detection. There are not hundreds, but there are two of them. Either you are able to recognize the attacker, and in the way you are able to recognize the attack that is taking place. Or you are able to recognize what is the normal behavior of your system, and you are able to see when your system is doing something strange. There is no other way. Also, the most intelligent web application firewalls, etc., 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 based on heuristic. What is a heuristic? Well, a heuristic is something that says, if I see a little piece of this, a little piece of that, a little piece of this, then it's probably this kind of attack. If I see a union, it's probably an SQL injection. Are you 100% sure? No. Then I don't call it a signature, I call it a heuristic. But it is recognizing the attack. Well, unfortunately, so the above one is the classical antivirus. Well, unfortunately, these antivirus, based on recognizing the attack, they don't work on data systems. They don't work on SCADA system. They don't work on building automation. And I can put my money on that. It will not work on IoT. And why? Because we simply don't have a way of knowing the attacks beforehand. We know the attacks beforehand that happen on Windows. When we don't know it beforehand, we know after some time that these attacks have been out there. But because there are zillions of systems using exactly Windows, and when we we see an attack, then this attack ships to Symantec or to McAfee, they look at it in a virtual machine, and then they extract the signature needed for this. It takes weeks, but after weeks, then we have some signature. But in the meanwhile, you are vulnerable. Now, when we go to IoT, embedded device, etc., that are based on, that are very, very different systems. They don't have the same base. They are passed differently. They use different pieces of software. Then that signature thing is not going to work any longer. It's not working on SCADA. It's, well, let's leave the automation out of this for a moment. So we are left with the second thing. Recognizing what happens in my system and recognizing when something wrong happens. And then people think about anomaly detection in the form of neural networks, or self-organizing map or engrammage. That doesn't work because they tell you, hey, there's something wrong, but they don't tell you what happens. So you're not going to look at that. The only way of doing this is understanding, really being able to understand what happens in your system. It's monitoring. Do I understand what happens in my computer? I don't. If I look at the network traffic that happens there, I'm just going to... Why? Because there are tens, hundreds of processes doing the most weird things. So I cannot apply this system to my computer. It's too complex. So there's only one way ahead. Actually, because if we take away the signatures, it's being able to monitor and respond. And monitor is that phase of recognizing when something wrong happened, and response is equally important. Yeah? So a response means being able to patch the thing, being able to reinstall the thing, being able to reset, to put the backup back in place. Huh? And IoT, as it is now, is the contrary of this. You're not able to monitor it. It's not interoperable. We all we devise all kind of different things that work in different ways, and I have no idea what happens. And response is even more difficult. By the way, monitoring and response means also that someone has to be in charge. And this is something important that Menno said this morning. That people sat down and started deciding who's in charge of this. Who's in charge of my home automation? Who's in charge of my network? I have 100 different devices, about 100 different vendors. Am I in charge if something happens? This is something we have to sort out before we even start thinking about security for Internet of Things. So forget about security, forget about secure design. That's not going to happen. We're not going to design secure systems. We have to design resilient systems. We have to design systems that when things will go wrong, and things will go wrong, you will have the chance of putting them back. You will have the chance of understanding that something went wrong, and you have an easy way of reinstalling, patching, reconfiguring, etc., etc. So let me reiterate. I think the single most important reason why attacks are so difficult to block is that present systems are so incredibly difficult to monitor. And we have to stop thinking about security by design. We have to start thinking about monitorability by design. We have to design Internet of Things devices that I'm able to monitor, that I'm able to patch, I'm able to reconfigure when I need to do that. It's a totally different, it's a completely shift in mindset we have to do. And if we don't start talking to each other about interoperability standards, etc., we are never going to get there. So, have we done some work on this? Yes, we have. We have some very good success story about monitorability for embedded system in closed system like SCADA systems. energy, manufacturing, etc., etc. There are companies now working on this, and there are huge success stories. But those are closed systems. Those are not systems that you can put a new device every other day. The kind of monitoring that is in there, it's not able to deal with this kind of change, the kind of changes that Internet of Things will bring about. What we're working at now, and then I'm talking here as a researcher, what we're working on now, and we see some interesting results, and this is not a paper by this is a paper by friends of mine, I haven't contributed to it directly. In building automation, we have the possibility of doing a very good job in monitoring. And why? Because building automation is based on BACnet. Building automation, don't only think about building. I mean, this whole campus is managed to use BACnet. And I mean the water, the lights, the air conditioning, etc., etc. The nice thing about BACnet is that it's standard. So this guy Marco Caselli did an excellent job doing what? Well, he would monitor the network, the BACnet network. He would understand which device were connected to the BACnet network. He would go automatically fetch on the internet the specs of these devices, and then match what he would see on the network with the specs of the device. And he would find a whole bunch of problems. But he was able to find that because BACnet is a standard and because the specs were there. So, and the Internet of Things is a step in complexity. I mean, this is increasing complexity. SCADA, we know how to handle that. Building automation is something that we are going to be able to handle in a few years. IoT, as it is now, it's a nightmare. It's not even going to be a nightmare. It's because of the low monitorability, because of the lack of interoperability, because there is no management beforehand defined. Nobody's in charge. I'm not patching my router. Because updates are so difficult, and because if and when we will put monitorability in place, then we have the other side of the medal that's going to hit us very, very hard. And that's the privacy thing. And because monitorability means that we have to make things more visible. But on the other hand, privacy is at stake in the moment that this visibility of events, of things you can tell over my life is going to endanger my privacy. So I'm sorry, I don't have a solution, but I am pretty sure that 20 years from now, our IoT devices are going to be monitorable. I'm pretty sure someone is going to be in charge. I'm pretty sure that they will have to be transparent in the way they work. And they're not now, just like my computer is not transparent. Okay, so monitorability by design. We need to design systems in such a way that they're monitorable. We need interoperable standard and keeping in mind privacy and accountability. That's my presentation, so I can take questions.
I just was making a note, IoT is a nightmare, so... well, thank you very much. This is really food for thought. So we have to wait 20 years before things are monitorable, and in the meantime, a lot of things or disasters will happen.
If we wait 20 years, then nothing is going to happen. What I think is that this is there are going to be battles, there are going to be wars, There are going to be lost battles and lost wars, and at the end of the day, this is the way we're going to come out of this problem. So I think it's wise if we start thinking about it right now, and we start designing these things in this way right now. I hope I'm preaching the designers.
No, I think it's good. I mean, it's very good that you, let's say, have a big warning. I mean, warning about this. But but you have a question there.
Yes.
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, just a question about the interoperability aspect, because most of the things protocols, they are open. Most of the people know what the things is doing. But
sorry, there's a microphone. Yeah. So sorry, I was too late.
So I'm a little bit doubting about the fact that these things are not monitorable, because most of these standards are open standards to be used in Internet of Things, like the co-op standards, like all kinds of protocols. Everybody knows them. With the Wireshark, you just can see what's happening. Yes. So what is now the problem with the interoperability? Because of course you cannot see what is in the message, but you can see the traffic. Yeah? You can do something with the traffic.
But you're not there yet. Okay. So if you ask me what is monitorability, I don't have a precise answer. But what we need to know is what is happening with this device. I know this device. Okay. So, for instance, I need to know whether this device is. I can already notice whether when the lamp is trying to talk to my air conditioning system, and that's not supposed to happen. Huh? Okay. So that's a very low level, very simple thing to monitor. What I cannot monitor is the kind of messages that go from my computer, from my base station to the lamp. I would like to have a lamp to say, look, I'm going to do this, and that to your system. And you're going to notice when I do this because I use this kind of message. You're going to notice when I do that because I use this kind of message. And so that I can tell when the lamp is doing what, and I can tell if someone has hacked the lamp, that there are messages that they are not following the prescribed format. So I want to be a lamp that tells me, this is exactly what I'm going to do. This is exactly the information I'm going to send into room. And these are the messages I'm going to use. And once I have that, I can monitor the lamp. Did I answer your question?
Well, if you want to comment,
no.
There's still time.
No, the problem is that as soon as you want to see what the message is meaning,
yes,
and they are encrypted, you don't know what the content is of the message. So you can always monitor the traffic probably, but you don't know what the meaning is. So you want that the computer is is controlling the lamp, for instance. But yeah, if there is normal behavior in it.
If it is encrypted, I'm not monitoring it. At most, I'm able to see a lamp is talking to my computer. Have no idea what's happening. Encryption is a nightmare for monitorability, and
yes, that's what I mean.
Yes, but when all the communication is encrypted, we have a system that's completely non-monitorable unless I'm able to decrypt the communication. I'm able to monitor that, and I have a white paper in the make already for having in the make together with a guy of ABB, explaining why encryption for SCADA system is such a boomerang, because it prevents you from monitoring the system, and not only for security when the bad guys break in, but also when something happens. You have no idea. The system falls apart, and you have no idea what hit him. If communication is not encrypted, then you can go and do some forensics of what happened. If communication is encrypted, good luck. So I think, I'm really, and this is if you want to put it black-white, encryption is a blessed occurrence, right? And it provides some additional security and safety feature, but on the other hand, it has so many drawbacks.
But the nice thing about BACnet is there's no security.
Well, the nice thing about BACnet is that it's monitorable. Yeah? And so I'm pretty sure, we are starting to work on it, I'm pretty sure we are going to be able to do a very good monitoring of that if you try to break in, I'm going to see it. But if BACnet was completely encrypted, that would be a nightmare.
Okay, another question? Yeah?
Oh. Yes. Personally, I think 20 years is a bit long for
Okay.
I think it's more 5 to 10 years, but beside that. Making everything monitorable, isn't that a security risk at the same time?
Absolutely.
Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, it is a security risk because of at least 2 things, but if I can think about it, I can probably mention more than. First is that you give up some kind of security, like the encryption. I mean, let's be honest, encrypting things that gives you an extra layer of security, and you have to open it up. And second thing, the monitoring systems become the systems that can create a problem, because they can see things, and suppose that you encrypt, they can decrypt things, because otherwise you cannot monitor. And you add complexity. Adding complexity is always bad for security.
Okay, last question? Yeah.
I think you said forget security by design and take this instead. But isn't it really a combination of the two? What we are looking for?
No, and sorry if I said forget security by design. It's not that we should not design secure software. I mean, security design is very, very important. Yes, you can see this as a global whole, but the tools and the mindset that you need to design monitorable system is very different from the tools and the mindset that you need to design secure systems. I mean, it's 2 different kind of people who have to, and mindset who have to be used. So it's
okay.
My personal guess and opinion. I'm happy if someone proves me wrong.
Okay, well, thank you very much again. Thank you. Now we move to the next presentation, which is about blockchain and Internet of Things. And